I believe Bitcoin is severely undervalued right now. Even anywhere sub 100K is just a very rare anomaly. We should have been far higher than 100,000 right now, but I believe we're on track to 1 million. The ETFs have been an enormous influx of capital into Bitcoin, but that has been muted by the unwinding of GBTC or Grayscale Bitcoin. So I think my prediction was earlier this year that the ETFs would send us there. I still believe that that will be the case, but it has been muted because of the unwinding of all the drama, I guess, that is largely held over from FTX until now. So we're getting to the point where we should be going parabolic very soon.
Samson Mow argues that Bitcoin is grossly undervalued in today's market. According to him, a valuation below $100,000 is an anomaly, not the norm, and the cryptocurrency's real potential lies in a path toward $1 million per Bitcoin. He attributes this undervaluation largely to the unwinding of the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, GBTC, and the fallout from FTX, that both of which created temporary market conditions that suppressed Bitcoin's price. Mow sees Bitcoin ETF as a major capital inflow mechanism, facilitating institutional money access and ultimately driving prices higher. Although the effect has been muted by external factors, Mow believes Bitcoin will soon experience a parabolic rise. The price action will likely be short and intense, characteristic of the kind of economic upheaval he predicts as inevitable.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
First of all, you can look at the macroeconomic landscape and the massive accumulation of debt in the US. Interest payments are getting to $1 trillion a year. And I don't think most people realize, but these are astronomical numbers, and these are absolutely unsustainable. So either there's going to be a debt jubilee, or the US dollar has to rebase to Bitcoin. So, one Satoshi, there's 100 million Satoshis in a Bitcoin, and you could reprice the US dollar to one Satoshi equals $1. There's no way to pay the debt off, right? And debt is far higher than GDP. Yeah. So something has to give. Either there's a debt jubilee all around, or you have to reprice or rebase to a harder asset. And it's difficult at this time to imagine the creation of a new dollar. Like you have that in many countries, when the fiat currency fails, you just make a new one and you lop off some zeros. But with the advent of Bitcoin, it's no longer possible because people they have an option now. They have a choice to go to Bitcoin or to accept a new fiat. And I just don't believe that will be the case. Therefore, it is inevitable that we do rebase to Bitcoin eventually. The question is when. But I believe $1 to one Satoshi is a fair rebase plan. These things are very sudden. If you look at the failure of fiat currencies, they don't gradually fail. They fail spectacularly. And this is the premise behind the 1 million Bitcoin call, that it's not going to be a gradual, slow increase to $1 million a coin, but rather a very short and violent upheaval that sends us there in a matter of months, weeks to months. And if you look at the hyperbitcoinization landscape, what you do see is more and more countries coming out and mining Bitcoin. Bhutan, I think, is the clearest example of this. They have close to $1 trillion now in Bitcoin holdings from mining over the past 4 to 5 years. So if this is not an indication that hyperbitcoinization is coming, I'm not really sure what is. But countries that have excess energy, they can tap into that now and convert that into money and use that money for financing lots of different things. I believe we're also on the verge of countries issuing debt, sovereign debt, to buy Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin bond program, it is going to come simply because the MicroStrategy model has illustrated that this works, and it works very well. And it's just simply a matter of time before a country pulls that trigger and unleashes a torrent of sovereign debt to acquire Bitcoin. I think most Bitcoiners, like a fair amount of Bitcoiners, don't want to spend their Bitcoin, but sure, a good portion do, simply for the goal of spreading awareness and adoption. Mm-hmm. But there's a simple way around that, which is spend and replace. So while you can still buy Bitcoin with dollars, you can spend the Bitcoin and replace it by buying it back later. And in doing so, you're sort of fostering the emergence of circular economies where people accept Bitcoin and they spend Bitcoin out again. But we have to start somewhere, and we have to jumpstart that process somehow. Under a Trump administration, I believe we could see the start of that, which is the adoption of Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. So President Trump and Senator Cynthia Lummis have announced plans to create this strategic Bitcoin reserve. So to begin with, they would accumulate a massive amount of Bitcoin, potentially 1 million coins. And I think from there, the rebasement is just a matter of time when the fiat currency fails. When people no longer want to accept the dollar, then you kind of have to say, well, we will rebase to Satoshis as the underlying currency. And Trump has hinted of this. He said, maybe we pay off the debt by giving people a bit of Bitcoin. And I don't know if he's exactly thinking of rebasing to Bitcoin, but he's hinting, or at least his line of thought is moving in that direction. People recognize Bitcoin as a superior asset, and there's just not so much capital flowing into altcoins right now. The ETFs I view as a portal into money. So money can easily flow into the Bitcoin ETFs and by extension, Bitcoin itself through this method. So central banks can now buy Bitcoin or get Bitcoin exposure through those ETFs. You have pension funds now seeking exposure, but just more and more large institutional entities are funneling money into Bitcoin and not so much into altcoins. Even if you look at the Ethereum ETF, it's performing quite dismally compared to the Bitcoin ETFs.
Mow maintains that while smart contracts can add value, Bitcoin's primary function is to serve as a monetary asset. Only after Bitcoin firmly establishes itself as the world's preferred currency can auxiliary functions like smart contracts be more widely explored. Bitcoin, Mow says, is the cake, and smart contracts are simply icing on the cake. Mow comments on the identity of Bitcoin's mysterious creator, Satoshi Nakamoto. He recounts some humorous anecdotes and theories about various candidates, including developer Peter Todd, though he is skeptical of any definitive answer. Mow emphasizes that Satoshi's goal was always to remain anonymous, and that privacy has been essential to Bitcoin's success as a decentralized, ungovernable asset.
We do see a massive amount of stablecoin adoption, particularly in Latin America and just generally developing countries. And this is more driven out of necessity. So they're not really seeking Bitcoin. They're seeking US dollars or digital dollars. And in places like Latin America, they don't even say Tether. They just say digital dollars because for them, it's synonymous. But they are seeking out stability in light of their currency problems at home and the debasement and inflation of their own currencies. So I believe that as Bitcoiners and people trying to push for Bitcoin adoption, we can leverage that and bring people into Bitcoin by offering stablecoins in a Bitcoin wallet, which has not been something that most Bitcoin wallets have focused on in the past, but is something that we are very much focused on. So that's sort of a Trojan horse for us, getting more people that are just looking for digital dollars into Bitcoin. But to answer your other question, I believe everyone will eventually have to use Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, simply because no one will want dollars in the end. So if the dollar keeps devaluing, which it has been over the past 100 years, almost to zero, then eventually people will say, I will not sell you this bread or these eggs for dollars. I want Bitcoin. And this is at the point at which you don't have a choice. You have to adopt Bitcoin as your currency, because if you do not do that, then you won't be able to buy anything. So it's sort of an inevitability. We're seeing more and more interest on that front because Bitcoin is now moving again, right? When there's price action, when there's more volatility, and especially expectations of a price run up, there's definitely more interest in Bitcoin adoption at the nation state level. But also the documentary has had an interesting effect, which is it's amplified some of our message. So a lot more people are reaching out to us saying, hey, we want to talk and see if we can get you a meeting with the head of state in this country or various places. And it's just ramping up. So I believe if Bitcoin does do its thing, which it should be doing very soon, running up to the hundreds of thousands of dollars to a million, then we should see a lot more interest on the nation state level. Well, I think there are ways that you can roll out smart contracting, but ultimately the first and the most important function of Bitcoin is to be money. Once you have that established as a primary use case, then things like smart contracts can be beneficial, but smart contracts are more like icing on the cake, and Bitcoin is the cake itself. Well, that sounds like something Satoshi would say, but I don't believe Peter Todd is Satoshi. He sort of led the producers of the documentary, I believe, into assuming he is, because he would hint that, I'm not Satoshi, but I could have been for various reasons. But people that know him and know his work are doubtful that he could have built something as complex and as involved as Bitcoin.
I mean, have you spoken to Peter? Do you know him at all, or is that something you can share?
Yeah, I've known him for a very long time, since my days at BTC China. So we actually sponsored his work. But, if you know him well enough, you kind of, I think you can form the conclusion that he couldn't be Satoshi. And there's a number of reasons. One is he's not that technical. Like, Bitcoin is a very involved, complex system using a lot of different technologies and requiring expertise in many different disciplines. And while Peter Todd has contributed to Bitcoin development, he's sort of adding minor features on top of Bitcoin rather than engineering an entire system from the ground up. If you want to find Satoshi, you will always find Satoshi. There are many different candidates that are viable that were active either as a cypherpunk or as a cryptographer and expressed interest in forms of digital money. So I would say there's probably 50, 60 people that could fit the bill. And
why does it have to be an individual? Could it be a government organization, as some theories espouse it could be?
Well, some people think it could be a group, but I mean, the cohesion of the code and his writings and communications are just too tight to have been distributed. Like, there is very little contradiction and, I guess, discohesion in how he communicates. So, I mean, there's always a possibility, but I would say it's highly unlikely that it's a group. But if it was an individual, I just don't see that as anyone that's active in the space that I've interacted with at all. And I think if Satoshi really wanted to be anonymous, it's quite simple. Adam Back has said this time and time again. Just don't go to conferences and don't give interviews, and they'll never find you.
Samson Mow's perspective provides a roadmap for Bitcoin's ascent to $1 million and beyond. He highlights critical factors, from unsustainable U.S. debt and the need for a stable asset to the accelerating rate of institutional adoption. His vision of hyperbitcoinization, where Bitcoin becomes the world's dominant reserve currency, is both compelling and profound. As more nations and institutions move toward Bitcoin adoption, Mow's insights reveal that this transition is not just possible, but likely. The question isn't if Bitcoin will reach unprecedented heights, but rather how soon.
Please like and subscribe my channel.